last night's dinner without giving it a second thought. Millions of people do it every single day. But what if one of the foods sitting in your refrigerator could become unsafe because it's old, but because it wasn't stored the right way? Many older adults believe that if food smells fine and looks normal, it's safe to eat. Unfortunately, that's not always true. Today, we're uncovering for everyday foods that deserve extra attention before you reheat them. While reheating itself doesn't cause cancer, improper storage and reheating can allow harmful bacteria to grow or reduce the food's quality. These are simple mistakes that many families make without realizing the risks. If you're over 60 or you cook meals ahead of time, this information could help protect your health. So stay with us until the end, because food number for surprises almost everyone. Let's get started. Have you ever opened your refrigerator, spotted last night's leftovers, and thought, I'll just heat this up for lunch? If so, you're not alone. In homes around the world, reheating leftovers is part of everyday life. It saves time, reduces food waste, and makes meal planning easier, especially for busy families and older adults who prefer cooking in larger batches. But while reheating food is generally safe when done properly, there are a few foods that require extra care. The real danger isn't the microwave or the stove, it's how those foods were stored before they were reheated. Today, we're going to uncover for common foods that many people unknowingly handle the wrong way. Contrary to what you may have seen online, reheating these foods does not automatically cause cancer. However, improper storage and repeated reheating can increase the risk of foodborne illness, and in some cases, reduce the nutritional value of your meals. Systems naturally become less effective at fighting harmful bacteria. A stomach illness that might only cause a younger person a day of discomfort can lead to serious dehydration, weakness, or even hospitalization in someone over the age of 60. That's why today's episode isn't about creating fear. It's about helping you make smarter, safer choices in your own kitchen. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which foods deserve a second look before you reheat them, and more importantly, how to enjoy them safely. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Welcome to Senior Health Podcast. Welcome back to Senior Health Podcast, where we explore simple, science-based health advice designed to help you live a longer, healthier, and more independent life. Every week, we break down complex medical topics into practical information that you can actually use. Whether we're discussing heart health, nutrition, healthy aging, or everyday habits that protect your body, our goal is always the same: to give you reliable knowledge that helps you make informed decisions. Today's topic is one that almost every household can relate to: leftovers. Most of us have been taught that reheating food is a normal part of daily life. In fact, leftovers can be an excellent way to save money, reduce food waste, and make healthy eating more convenient. But here's something many people don't realize. Food safety doesn't begin when you press the reheat button on your microwave. It begins the moment your meal finishes cooking. Those first few hours after a meal is prepared are incredibly important. If food is left sitting at room temperature for too long, bacteria can begin multiplying rapidly, even if the food still looks fresh, smells normal, and tastes exactly the same. That's one of the biggest challenges with foodborne bacteria. For healthy young adults, mild food poisoning may simply mean an unpleasant day at home. For seniors, however, the consequences can be much more serious. Dehydration develops more quickly. Recovery often takes longer. Existing medical conditions, such as diabetes, kidney disease, or heart disease, can make even a relatively mild stomach illness much more dangerous. That's why organizations around the world consistently encourage older adults to pay close attention to food storage, refrigeration, and reheating practices. Fortunately, protecting yourself doesn't require expensive equipment or complicated cooking techniques. In many cases, a few simple habits can dramatically reduce your risk: refrigerating leftovers promptly, using shallow containers so food cools more quickly, avoiding repeated reheating, making sure food reaches a safe internal temperature before eating. These small adjustments may seem insignificant, but together they form one of the easiest ways to protect yourself and your family from preventable illness. Now, before we continue, it's important to clear up a common misunderstanding. You may have seen alarming headlines online claiming that reheating certain foods causes cancer. The scientific evidence does not support that claim. Reheating food itself does not create cancer. What experts are actually concerned about is improper food handling, when cooked food remains in what's known as the danger zone, generally between 40°F and 140°F, or about 40 to 60 for too long, bacteria can multiply quickly. Some bacteria even produce toxins that aren't fully destroyed by reheating. In other words, the problem often begins long before the food is warmed up again. Understanding this distinction is incredibly important because it allows us to focus on real, evidence-based risks rather than myths. We'll look at for foods that deserve extra attention not because they're unhealthy, but because they're commonly mishandled. We'll explain why these foods can become risky if stored incorrectly. We'll share practical tips for preparing and reheating them safely. And we'll help you build habits that support healthier aging without giving up the foods you enjoy. Remember, healthy aging isn't about perfection. It's about making informed choices, one meal at a time. So, with that in mind, let's turn our attention to the first food on today's list. It's one of the most popular side dishes in the world. Millions of people cook it every single day. It's inexpensive, filling, and incredibly versatile. Yet it's also one of the foods most commonly linked to preventable foodborne illness, not because of reheating itself, but because of what happens after it's cooked and before it reaches the refrigerator. Let's take a closer look at food number 1, rice. Let's talk about the first food on today's list. It may surprise you because it's one of the most popular foods in the world. In fact, billions of people eat it every single day. It's affordable, versatile, easy to prepare, and a staple in countless households. We're talking about rice. Whether it's served with vegetables, chicken, fish, or enjoyed on its own, rice has earned its place as a healthy part of many diets. It provides energy, is naturally gluten-free, and can fit into a balanced eating plan for people of all ages. So why are we talking about it today? Is rice dangerous? Not at all. The truth is, rice itself isn't the problem. The concern is what can happen after it's cooked if it's not stored properly. This is one of the most misunderstood food safety topics, and understanding it can help protect you and your family. What makes cooked rice different? Bacterial spores from a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. These spores are commonly found in soil and the environment, and they can sometimes be present on grains before they're packaged. Here's the important part. Cooking rice destroys most active bacteria, but these spores can survive the cooking process. Normally, that's not a problem. The real issue begins if cooked rice is left sitting at room temperature for several hours. When cooked rice stays warm on the kitchen counter, those surviving spores can begin to grow into bacteria. As they multiply, some strains can produce toxins. Certain toxins are heat stable, meaning reheating the rice later may not completely eliminate them. That's why food safety experts emphasize how rice is cooled and stored, not simply how it's reheated. Why seniors should pay extra attention. For many younger adults, a mild case of food poisoning may result in an upset stomach that passes within a day or two. For older adults, the situation can be much more serious. As we age, our immune systems naturally become less efficient. Our bodies may not fight infections as quickly as they once did. Dehydration can develop faster, recovery often takes longer, and chronic conditions such as diabetes, kidney disease, or heart disease can make even a short illness more challenging. Symptoms of foodborne illness linked to improperly stored rice can include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach cramps. These symptoms can appear within a few hours after eating contaminated food. If severe vomiting or diarrhea occurs, dehydration becomes a real concern, especially for seniors. Losing too much fluid can affect blood pressure, kidney function, and overall strength. That's why taking simple precautions before problems arise is always the better choice. A story that could happen to anyone. Imagine a woman named Margaret enjoys cooking and likes preparing enough food to last several days. One afternoon, she cooks a large pot of rice for dinner. After the meal, she plans to put the leftovers away but gets distracted by a phone call from her daughter. Then her grandchildren stop by for a visit. Before she realizes it, several hours have passed. Later that evening, she transfers the rice into the refrigerator. The next day, she reheats a generous portion until it's piping hot. It smells perfectly normal. It tastes exactly as expected. A few hours later, she begins feeling nauseous. Soon she develops stomach cramps and repeated vomiting. She can't understand what happened. The rice looked fresh. It didn't smell spoiled. But harmful bacteria don't always announce their presence. They often leave no visible signs at all. This is why appearance, smell, and taste alone aren't reliable ways to judge food safety. Common myths about reheated rice. You've probably heard someone say, "Never reheat rice. It's poisonous." That statement isn't accurate. Rice doesn't become dangerous simply because it's reheated. In fact, if rice is cooled promptly, refrigerated within about 2 hours after cooking, stored properly, and reheated thoroughly, it can be enjoyed safely. The real danger comes from leaving cooked rice at room temperature for too long before refrigeration. Understanding the difference helps replace fear with practical knowledge. How to store rice safely. Fortunately, Safe rice storage is simple. After cooking, avoid leaving rice on the counter for extended periods. Once you've finished eating, allow it to cool briefly but don't wait several hours. Transfer leftovers into shallow containers so they cool more quickly. Then place them in the refrigerator within about 2 hours. When you're ready to eat the leftovers, reheat only the portion you plan to consume. Make sure it's steaming hot throughout before serving, worth far more than the cost of replacing one meal. Building safer kitchen habits. One of the best ways to protect yourself is to develop simple routines. If you know you'll have leftovers, prepare storage containers before dinner. As soon as the meal is over, portion the remaining rice into those containers instead of leaving the cooking pot on the stove. Label leftovers with the date, if you regularly prepare meals in advance. This makes it easier to remember when food should be eaten or discarded. Small habits like these require very little effort, yet they can significantly reduce the risk of foodborne illness. The bigger picture, today's lesson isn't really about rice. It's about recognizing that food safety begins long before reheating. Proper cooking, prompt refrigeration, clean kitchen practices, and careful storage all work together to keep meals safe. When these steps become part of your daily routine, you can continue enjoying your favorite foods with confidence. And rice isn't the only food where good storage habits matter. The next food on our list is found in almost every refrigerator. It's packed with nutrients, rich in high-quality protein, and recommended by many health experts. Yet it's also one of the foods most commonly mishandled after cooking. Let's move on to food number 2 and discover why eggs deserve a little extra attention before you decide to reheat them. Before we move on to the next food, let's pause for a moment. By now, you may be wondering, does this mean I should stop eating leftovers altogether? The answer is no. In fact, leftovers can be one of the smartest ways to eat healthy. They save time, reduce food waste, help you control portion sizes, and make it easier to prepare nutritious meals throughout the week. The key isn't avoiding leftovers. The key is handling them safely. And say that bacteria don't care whether a meal is expensive or inexpensive, homemade or restaurant quality. Harmful bacteria can grow in almost any cooked food if it's left at unsafe temperatures for too long. That's why building a few simple kitchen habits can make a remarkable difference. These habits don't require special equipment, expensive appliances, or advanced cooking skills. They simply require consistency. Habit number 1. Don't let food sit out too long. One of the most common mistakes people make is leaving food on the dining table or kitchen counter for several hours after a meal. Perhaps you're entertaining guests. Maybe you're watching television. Or perhaps you simply forget because you're busy cleaning up. Unfortunately, bacteria don't take a break. When cooked food remains at room temperature for extended periods, bacteria can multiply surprisingly quickly. This is why food safety authorities recommend refrigerating most leftovers within about 2 hours after cooking. If the environment is especially hot, such as during summer or at an outdoor gathering, food should be refrigerated even sooner. A simple reminder on your phone can help if you often lose track of time. Habit number 2. Divide large meals into smaller portions. Many families place an entire cooking pot directly into the refrigerator. Although this seems convenient, large containers cool much more slowly than shallow ones. The center of a large pot may remain warm for several hours, giving bacteria more time to grow. Instead, divide leftovers into several smaller, shallow containers. Not only do they cool faster, but they're also easier to reheat in individual portions later. This small change improves both convenience and food safety. Habit number 3. Reheat only what you need. Here's another habit that many people overlook. Imagine preparing enough rice, soup, or pasta for meals. Those cooler areas may not reach temperatures high enough to destroy harmful bacteria that are easily eliminated by proper reheating. When reheating leftovers, stir foods halfway through heating whenever possible. Rotate the container if your microwave doesn't have a turntable. Allow food to stand for a minute after heating so the temperature becomes more even. Make sure the food is steaming hot throughout before eating. These extra seconds can make a meaningful difference. Habit number 5. Trust time, not your nose. Perhaps one of the biggest misconceptions about food safety is believing that spoiled food always smells bad. In reality, many harmful bacteria produce no noticeable odor. Food can look fresh. It can smell perfectly normal. It can even taste exactly as expected. Yet it may still contain enough bacteria or toxins to make someone sick. That's why relying on memory is often safer than relying on your senses. If you're unsure how long leftovers have been sitting out or how many days they've been in the refrigerator, it's usually wiser to discard them. As the old saying goes, when in doubt, throw it out. Why these habits matter even more after age 60. Our bodies change as we grow older. The stomach may produce less acid, reducing one of the body's natural defenses against harmful bacteria. The immune system also becomes less responsive with age. Recovery from illness often takes longer. Many older adults also manage chronic medical conditions or take medications that can affect immune function. This doesn't mean seniors should worry about every meal they eat. It simply means that food safety deserves the same attention as nutrition. Choosing healthy foods is only part of protecting your health. Preparing and storing them safely is just as important. The good news is that nearly every food safety risk we've discussed today is preventable. You don't need to eliminate rice from your diet. You don't need to stop preparing meals in advance. You don't need to throw away every leftover. Instead, focus on building a routine. Cool foods promptly. Store them properly. Reheat them thoroughly. Eat them within a reasonable time. These simple habits can become second nature, protecting both you and the people you love. Remember, healthy aging isn't built on one dramatic decision. It's built on hundreds of small choices made consistently over time. Every safe meal is another investment in your future health. And it's time to move to the second food on today's list. This next item is found in almost every refrigerator. Doctors often recommend it because it's rich in protein, vitamins, and important nutrients. Yet when it's cooked, stored incorrectly, or reheated carelessly, it can also become a source of foodborne illness. The surprising part: many people make the same mistake with this food every single week without realizing it. Let's discover why eggs deserve a little more attention than most of us give them.